I wasn't fulfilled in the work. I thought I was going to love it, and I really didn't like the environment. If I'm broke, but I'm making good money, then I have a money mindset problem. At the end of the day, I didn't need any of that stuff in order to start a YouTube channel. I actually discovered that like perfectionism, it's directly correlated to having a fear of judgment. It's like your blood and your brain's in the wrong place. You literally cannot do any kind of creative problem solving. I would say the number one thing that would probably help someone is to pay attention to the triggers themselves. This is something that can apply to almost anything in life.
Hey there, real quick, if you enjoyed the show, please support by following on your favorite podcast station, review and share it with your peers to help them and me out, because I don't run any ads and every share helps. Thanks, and let's jump into it. Hey Matt, welcome to the Nomad Solopreneur Show.
Yeah, thanks Gabe. I've been looking forward to connecting with you.
Likewise, but before we jump in, please let me know where you're calling from, since we all the time record these episodes remote.
I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
I haven't been to Canada, but at least from the pictures, it's one of those beautiful mountain region, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we're right beside the Rocky Mountains. It tends to be a bit cold and long winters here. So that's kind of what's up. It doesn't really get green and nice and warm until like May or June.
That's something. Naturally, I could stand that weather for a long period of time. But yeah, definitely I need to check it out, probably even in winter, to experience for a few days.
Yeah, if you're a digital nomad, it wouldn't hurt to come and probably stay at Banff, do some skiing or snowboarding, whatever you like to do if you want to experience some of the winter weather here. It can get cold though, I'll warn you. It gets down to like minus 40 sometimes Celsius.
I never experienced that. Back in my home country of Romania, I just experienced minus 25. But for the last 4 years, I've experienced just kind of warm tropical climate, currently calling from Bali. So going from 30 to minus 40 is not really in my plans.
I might have just convinced you not to come here.
Yeah, true. But please tell our listeners, who's Matt?
I'm Matt Biggar. I've been working in the YouTube space for about 5 years. That's why I like to share a story. I just like to share a story. I think that's the best way to kind of let people get to know you. So.
Yeah, true. So please tell us, how did you arrive there? How did you arrive to start your YouTube channel and went into videography?
So I was working as an electrician when I came out of high school, and I found that it was a little bit of a toxic environment. In my experience, a lot of the mentors that I looked up to were pretty miserable. They all kind of hated each other and they treated their apprentices like garbage. So it was a bit of a toxic work environment, and I wasn't very happy. I wasn't fulfilled in the work. I thought I was going to love it, and I really didn't like the environment. So what happened was I kind of got to a place where I was making good money, but I was blowing all of my money and going out drinking like whatever on the weekends. And I was trying to fill a hole. I wasn't happy in the work. So, I was going to throw myself off an apartment building or solve the problem, right? So I thought, okay, let's go to the bookstore. And I figured if I'm broke, but I'm making good money, then I have a money mindset problem. So I wasn't even into personal development at this time. And I actually ended up picking up Increasing Your Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki. Most people end up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But that was a book that opened up this door to a new world that I didn't know really existed. I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family, people that ran businesses or built things in that manner. And so it was really eye-opening, and I could never go back to not knowing about it. So that's what kind of started this pursuit of figuring things out. I chased my passions for a while. I tried to figure all that out. Tried a number of different types of businesses, from network marketing to videography is where I landed. And it was just like literally there was a job posting up online that this foot clinic, a foot doctor, wanted to create content. And I was just like the person that put his hand up and said, I can do this. I can help you. and I didn't even have any equipment. They forwarded me a check and I went and bought the camera. And then I worked off that investment by creating interview content for them. And that's how I got started with video. Then I started doing real estate stuff, shooting properties, working with realtors. It didn't take me very long to figure out that wasn't really the area where I was passionate about. It was more about the messengers of the world, the people that have something impactful to talk about and share, and thought leadership. And so I pivoted towards working with coaches and speakers. And what happened was I noticed something that I didn't feel like I was in integrity, because in order for me to pay the bills as a sole proprietor, I had to charge like $700 minimum to $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 for these projects. And I was working with individuals, right? So I wasn't going after small businesses. I was going after like individual people who were trying to build a personal brand. And they couldn't get results with any of the content that I was making them, because there was no distribution strategy. There was no content marketing strategy. They just wanted to get videos made. And unfortunately, that doesn't really work for a content marketing strategy. So I decided that instead of telling everyone else to make videos and being a hypocrite, evangelist for video, because I was afraid of judgment. Like, I wasn't getting in front of that camera. I was hiding behind it. And I tell everyone else to do it. So that's why I decided to start a YouTube channel, because I felt like I needed to lead by example. I didn't want to be the guy that was telling everyone else to do something he wasn't willing to do. And so in 2019, October 25th, 2019, that's the day I uploaded a very cringeworthy, awkward video that I had actually practiced probably over 50 times, and it's still awful. But it's a part of the journey, right? And so I don't look back. I think that it's valuable to just step into something, whether you think that you can do it or not, and try it out and really give it everything you've got. So that's how I landed on starting a YouTube channel.
That's quite a journey from an electrician to starting a YouTube channel. And I love the fact that even that the first video wasn't perfect, you still put it out there and you still made that first step, because that's something that a lot of people are struggling with, literally to start. Even the content is not perfect, the output, your skills at the beginning, of course, won't be perfect. And aside of that challenge, what other challenges did you face when you make the switch and try to go from behind the camera in front of it?
That's a great question. Perfectionism, I think, is something that a lot of people deal with. I like to share that, like, the wall behind me, that's not a fake backdrop, that's real. But it's called the wall of insecurity, though, right? Because I was a videographer, so I tried to perfect the set, right? I was trying to get the lighting dialed in, the white balance, like all of the stuff that matters for videography. And at the end of the day, I didn't need any of that stuff in order to start a YouTube channel. So it was that perfectionism that kind of held me back. And I actually discovered that, like, perfectionism is directly correlated for a lot of people, not everyone. It's directly correlated to having a fear of judgment. It was for me. And so I had to overcome that in order to create the content and put myself, like, actually upload it onto YouTube and make it public. That was a big one, I would say. That's one of the primary challenges. People think they've got to buy lots of fancy, expensive equipment. They think that they've got to dial everything in. And then what they realize when they start to make the content is how much they have to learn on skills that actually matter.
Yeah, I love that. And I hold myself back for so many years as well. So I definitely can relate to that. And when I started this podcast, I literally put everything, like my external camera, mic, another camera to film from another angle. And that was just for the first episode. After that, I was like, I won't do this anymore. I just want my mic, my camera, and my laptop and my notebook. That's all. And since then, over 10 episodes later, and I still recording like that, simple, in the places that I found around as a nomad. Like, this is a small phone booth in a co-working space. So you just have to deal with what you have in your hands. You don't have to go ahead and craft the perfect studio or craft the perfect equipment. That's just nonsense. And When it comes to perfectionism, and especially when it comes to comparing yourself with others, did you encounter that as well? Because YouTube is a very competitive.
That is definitely a huge one for a lot of people. So yes, I did. The solution for me was to stop comparing myself to other people's progress and allowing that to control my emotions, was to start to pay less attention to large amounts of different influencers and really double down and find the ones that I like how they show up. I like the information that they're sharing, and listen to those people. But then be mindful and like try to raise your self awareness around that comparison and feeling like, oh man, this person's so much further ahead of me that like, who am I to share my ideas and perspective? And so that's the first thing, is like not listening to too many different influencers, finding the ones that really resonate for you, but also making sure that you're not comparing yourself to them, that you're drawing inspiration from what they've done, and you own the value of your perspective, because that's really the only thing that's left in the world that's unique anymore. Like everything's been kind of said and done, but you have a valuable perspective to share with the world. That's the thing that kind of keeps me centered.
That's so true, because we cannot reinvent the wheel or create something that unique. But since at the personal level, we are all unique, we can bring on, as you mentioned, our perspective, our point of view, and that helps a lot to actually send a message that it's our own. And speaking of sending your own message, how do you find your voice to share something that aligns with your values and aligns with your plans? How you start niching down on the content? Because that's a huge one as well when it comes to start creating.
The first thing I think is to clarify your values, to get clarity about that, like literally write them down and have that, because it's kind of like a guiding principle. When you're clear on your values, then how to avoid shiny objects, which direction you should move in, you can make decisions in your business. You can start to build that lifestyle that you want for yourself. So I think the values are definitely a foundation for what we're talking about. So once I got clear on the values, the thing that I needed to do was to express more of my personality, my opinions on things, and be okay with sharing that stuff and not worrying about what other people are going to think about you. So when I started on YouTube, I was very much in the opposite. I was very concerned with saying something the wrong way, with sharing an opinion that people wouldn't agree with, that people weren't going to like me. And I mean, it's very restrictive. It's hard to find joy and creativity and fulfillment in your work when that sort of stuff is weighing on you. So I had to release that. And it's a process. It still comes up. It's not like you solve it and then it's like 100% fine and perfect. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, true. And in the same time, when someone doesn't agree with you, that's, in my opinion, at least a good sign that you have an opinion that's it's actually a bit contrarian, and not everyone should agree with. Definitely, I can relate with that. And how do you manage to, I don't know, don't listen, for example, to haters? Because YouTube, unfortunately, is full of them, probably more than any other platform, since you expose yourself both with the message and with your face. And did you encounter those, or not yet?
Honestly, surprisingly, not really. There's
Oh,
been a couple of people that have said a couple of comments here and there. Not nearly as bad as I think that a lot of people will work up in their own mind about how terrible the trolls are going to be. In my experience, it's not that bad, honestly. And I think one thing that you said earlier makes a huge difference. If you have the perspective that once people show up who do disagree with you, it's a good thing. I think we just need to really, as a human race, be more comfortable with disagreement. It's totally okay to disagree with someone. It's okay if they don't agree with you. And there's value in perspective. So I digress. That's a really important piece to it.
yeah, true. And because those like contrarian opinions and can start a huge and very helpful discussion. And just having someone to bring their perspective in, to share their opinions, share their experience, it's immense. And speaking of experience, after you started your YouTube channel, what was your direction and how did you try or how did you monetize that? Apart from sharing your message and your story, of course, we are all business owners and we try to make a living. How did you monetize?
I love that question. It's one of my favorite topics. I really feel like we need to normalize the conversation around monetization, especially when it comes to content creation. And so the answer is, I wish I had it with me right now, but my first paycheck I got an Amazon paycheck. Like they sent it in the mail for 36 cents. And I was like, Jeff Bezos paid more money to ship an envelope with a check in it from the United States to Canada than the actual value of the amount in the check. And it was hilarious because I realized that's when I kind of woke up. I'm like, hey, I can make money online. That's cool. It's 36 cents. Awesome. Let's celebrate this. So the answer is affiliate marketing. My channel in the beginning, and by the way, I don't recommend anyone builds a channel the way that I did, because I dabbled and I got distracted and I chased shiny objects known as keywords, which pulled my audience subscriber base in different directions. And it's very easy to confuse the algorithm on YouTube. So I started off with video creation, essentially trying to bring a simplistic approach to people to help business owners make their own content. That's what I wanted it to be about. But it got sidetracked because I ended up covering an app which has got a very strong following in the hobbyist filmmaker space. And the developer shared it, which meant that it took off. Awesome. Success. Except it pulled the channel direction in the wrong direction, because I got all these hobbyist filmmakers showing up and I really wanted to make it about business. I wanted it to be about content marketing and video and the power of video, like all that stuff, right? So the way I monetized primarily was affiliate marketing. And honestly, great place to start. Depends on your strategy. It really does matter what kind of business you want to build before you choose how you're going to monetize it. But the last thing I recommend for people is to bank on like the partner program and getting paid through Google AdSense, because getting monetized on that platform is challenging. People don't realize it's not a lot of money unless your channel's like skyrocketing and you've got 10,000, 100,000 or more subscribers on your channel. It's not really a viable income strategy. It's better to create your own sources of income. And so that's why I'm like really digging in and focusing on digital products. Bite-sized templates that you can create depending on your subject matter expertise, digital products like micro courses, anything that you can create to help and serve and support people that gives them a taste of like what you're all about in your paid content model, and building out a digital product ecosystem is the thing that I'm the most excited about. But the thing that carried me through in being able to pay the bills was one-to-one coaching and consulting. That was a big part of it. I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't working with clients to help them with some of the things that I'd already accomplished myself. So that's always been a big part of it. 6-month programs where I'm working with people one-to-one has been my bread and butter for sure.
And how did you realize that you want to take that direction? Because it's quite a huge difference, at least in my opinion, to shoot content just by yourself and manage your own things and your own content strategies and such, and pivoting into actually helping others do the same things that you do.
The thing that I knew was right for me was because I had a background. So I glossed over this earlier, but I worked for a cell phone company for 6 years before I went full-time on my business. And my job was to teach people how to use their phones for like 8 hours a day. I would do 45 minutes appointments with seniors mostly that wanted to learn how to text their grandkids. And for me, that was really fulfilling because they would come in, they'd buy a phone, salesman would get them the phone, and then they wouldn't know how to use it. And it was like overwhelming and frustrating for them. And after they would spend time with me, they'd walk out like feeling excited that they could use this technology and communicate with their family. So that was really fulfilling. And that was one of the signs that I knew that like something that really matters to me that I love to do is teaching, guiding, coaching other people to a specific result. So I brought that from my career with me into my business. And I don't handle a lot of clients. I'm not one of those people that tries to stuff their calendar. It doesn't work for me. I like to have a lot of freedom of time to be able to make content and create new products and do different things. So I only work with 3 to 5 people maximum. And it's not really that overwhelming. Having that is a restriction.
Yeah, that's brilliant. More often than not, a lot of people do realize that all the experience they had in their previous job, even that maybe wasn't the path they want to take forever or to stay in that 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives. But we learn so many things from our previous jobs. Personally, I learned sales. Before jumping into web design, I work in sales for various companies and such, and that helped me a lot to sell my services after that. Even that was a totally different type of sales. And in your case, like guiding others. And you mentioned that you want the freedom of time, the freedom of be able to creating content. And since you work with just a few clients, how do you make sure that you don't run out of clients at some point? Like your pipeline of leads doesn't dry up and you make sure that when the 6 months program ends, what do you do after that and such?
That's like the scariest thing about being self-employed.
Yeah, true, exactly.
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I don't want to get woo-woo, but I kind of believe in the law of attraction stuff. And I'm not saying like sit on your butt and don't go and try to get clients, but when I want to unpack one thing first. There was a thing that I had to work with my mindset to really unlock around money. And that was not allowing it to control my emotions and not make decisions based on fear or scarcity. And that took a lot of work to do, honestly. So with that being said, the key for me has always been get out of that state of stress. If your client roster is getting smaller, it means that you need to work hard on attracting new clients. And I just put the work in. I mean, an example, just February, my client roster did go down. And then I had someone reach out to me and ask me to do an editing project. Now, don't do editing for anybody. But for this person, I would because they were a friend. But that was a way that I was able to create a source of income that month to fill in some of the gaps. Right. And so it really is about getting creative to make sure that, number one, I think the thing that a lot of people will do in their business is they'll start to get comfortable when they have enough clients and like everything's covered. And then they kind of scale back on the outreach and they're doing the fulfillment part of the business. I mean, for me, it's been referrals, getting clients to refer you, and it's also outreach. And I mean, one of my strategies is to actually pull up someone's YouTube channel and just do a quick review for them. If I'm actively pursuing more clients, I could do that all day. So imagine this, you pull up their website, YouTube channel, whatever it is, and you're providing value. You're leading from a place of service and support. You're not pitching and trying to sell anything. You're showing them something that they could actually implement on their own. And that's worked well for me. Pull up the channel, show them some opportunities to improve it. And if they want to get on a call and have a conversation, then that's something that I open the conversation about. It's like, if you want to actually dig a little bit deeper in here, I could support you in this. So, I mean, that's just my approach. It's not going to work for everybody, but it definitely can get very stressful if you're not actively doing outreach and growing your client base. But thankfully, I do have some other income vehicles that I've created through YouTube and affiliate marketing to fill in some of those gaps as well.
That's the thing, right? Like you need to have those in place because without that, as you mentioned earlier, you might make a decision not in the best position. Like maybe you don't have a cushion that is protecting you and you have to make a decision fast, pressed by the lack of monies and such. But since you have these multiple streams of income that can fill the gaps, that's wonderful. And staying open as you did, like being open to do other type of work or maybe cross-selling different services for the same client that you already serve.
Yeah, I had a thought to expand on that. when we are in a state of stress, you can't do creative problem solving.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is why I mentioned the money mindset thing. It's like you have to learn to remove your emotions, meaning like fear around a lack of scarcity, income coming in, even in the worst situations. And I've been down to the bottom of my bank account. Like I know what that's like. And if you can do that, then what happens is you can then jump into focusing on creative problem solving. When you're stressed out and you're coming from a place of scarcity, it's like your blood and your brain's in the wrong place. So you literally cannot do any kind of creative problem solving. So knowing that was very helpful for me. And so that was what enabled me to get focused when I need to on the activities required in order to create income.
And what would be the advice for others to arrive at that level of consciousness? Because as we all know, it's much more harder to achieve than to be said. I've been in that situation as well. It was so freaking hard to focus simply because my mind was living in that scarcity phase.
You're bringing the coach out, be wary. I would say the number one thing that would probably help someone if they were listening to this conversation, since I can't actually coach someone if they're listening, but the thing that I would recommend is to pay attention to the triggers themselves. That thing that happened that made you get into that state, that's what you need to pay attention to. When you can dig underneath the surface of the thing that triggered the state that you're in your mind, then you can come at it from another angle. You can bring more awareness out of it. You can kind of sit with it and sort of explore it a bit more and ask yourself a question about it. Why did that trigger me? Like, this is just like something that can apply to almost anything in life, but it particularly comes in handy when you need to switch your state of mind. So that's the first thing, is just paying attention to the thing that caused you to get triggered by it and moving past it. I mean, you have to be able to take action in order to solve the problem. So you know that you need to get creative and you've got to just sort of calm yourself. I would also encourage people to consider meditation. That's been a game changer for me. I started a daily meditation practice over 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's a powerful practice. I was introduced to it, I think, exactly 4 years ago when I started my nomad journey. I was still in Bali, by the way, where I am now. And I was blown away by the calmness that I felt after that, by my mind being clear, literally, and not being overwhelmed with thoughts and such. And yeah, it's something that I recommend as well. And even that some people might be reluctant and to go into the spirituality of things and such, but just simply being able to breathe and clear your mind, it's so powerful. And do you have any other tips or practices that you have in a day, or maybe share how a day in your life looks like? Because you mentioned that you love to be free, you love to not have your calendar full.
I've toiled with the calendar approach and trying to like get everything blocked out and then stick with it. It just never worked for me. So, I mean, I know what needs to get done, and sometimes I don't always follow through. I will be perfectly open and honest about this. I'm probably not the kind of person you want to ask how to capitalize on your whole day and make it as productive as possible. I love productivity, but my approach is in doubling down on workflow optimization when it comes to creation of video content. That's the area where I'm most passionate. I'll go to the ends of the earth to find the fastest way without sacrificing the quality of the content and learning how to do that the most efficiently. But I don't have any calendar hacks for you. I will share one thing though that's worked well. If anyone's familiar with Brendan Bouchard, he wrote a book called High Performance Habits. I would highly recommend it. But the first book you should read is Atomic Habits. Everyone needs to read that book.
Agreed.
But what happens in High Performance Habits is he identifies this idea called prolific quality output. And it's like the thing that you center your career on. And it's like your zone of genius. It's the thing that you kind of get lost in, like you love it and you can get really good at it and you're a craftsman at it. And so I actually color coded my Google Calendar events to match the types of activities. There's work, there's communication, there's prolific quality output, and I color code everything in there so that I can kind of keep it all organized.
Oh, that's nice. And since you're all about systems and make it as fast and as easy as possible for you, can you go a bit deeper and share with our audience how your content creation workflow looks like at this point? I know it's continuous changing, but can you share that with us? I think that can be a good challenge for you, since we have this tradition in the show to challenge our guests to create an actionable step-by-step process for our listeners to be able to apply in their own business. So
absolutely,
this is a challenge for you.
It's so the approach changes based on whether you're doing short form, which I consider a video to be under 60 seconds, or if you're going longer form content, say 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute video for YouTube. Completely different processes. So we'll start with the short form content. If you're planning short form content, I like the content sandwich. It's a simple way to think about how do you stay on track and deliver a message in under a minute. And I'm not an expert at this, but I put in a lot of repetitions, lots of practice. It's going to make you better on camera. It's going to make you a better communicator. There's layers of benefits to creating short form content because you get so much practice in. And so that's the value of it. So the content sandwich is essentially your opening, your content hook. What do you say to pique curiosity? And then one key takeaway for the video. That gives you a thread to tie all of the things you say into the call to action, which is at the end of the video. What do you want them to do? So that's a really simple way to plan a short form piece of content. You got your hook, you got your key takeaway, and your call to action. When it comes to longer form content, that's where I double down on high quality. I'm gonna spend the time. I don't do weekly releases on YouTube anymore. I'll do one a month, and that's what works for me. I don't think you need to buy into the consistency advice of like you must show up as much as possible consistently. I think you can actually build relationships with your audience by doubling down on quality content. So that's my process. I'll research it, and I might take a week or more on researching the topic that I'm creating on. It depends. These are all in focused sessions. So I try not to blur the lines. Like if I'm going to research, that's what I'm doing for at least 1 hour, maybe 3 hours, whatever it takes. Right. And then once you get to the next phase, it's the same thing. So if you're writing your script, focus on just script writing. Don't multitask. Once you've got your script written, then you have a scheduled block for recording the content. Right. And then we get into post-production. So that's essentially how it goes for me. You start off with researching, you write your script, you shoot your video, and then you get it into Premiere Pro. That's what I use. And I do post-production editing. Your first draft is essentially just cutting all the stuff and assembling your sequence. And then you can put your polish on later. I find that to be way more productive to do each thing in a focused stage, so that you're not going back and forth constantly trying to tweak it. And it takes way longer to do that. So I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's how my workflow goes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I love the process because staying focused on one part, it's a game changer. That small tip that you shared, that turning out notification especially when you're scripting or when you're writing down your ideas, can be so powerful. Otherwise, you can easily have context switch and you're gone. And I want you to go a bit deeper, if you don't mind, into the research phase. Coming up with content ideas, coming up with actually valuable content is quite hard. How do you do that? Do you use any particular tools, or you have a specific approach when you do research?
Yes. So, I mean, the first thing is, even whether it's short form or long form, I like to have at least the idea for what the content hook is going to be, because I don't believe in like clickbait. Like, yeah, you've got to attract attention, but you want to follow through on your promise, right? So if you don't plan your hook first, then you end up like, it's just like things get disjointed. So if you plan the hook first and then you start making the content, then you can go back and revise your hook later. That's fine. In terms of researching ideas, you have to know what your niche is. That's a requirement. And I've changed mine so many times, I can't even tell you. But when you understand that, then it makes it a lot easier to figure out what are the problems, challenges, solutions, where are people getting caught up. You can start, like, once you have a channel that's growing, you can look at the analytics and you can see which videos perform better for you. So those are the ones that you want to maybe double down on. You can look at competitive channels. If I'm going to help someone launch a YouTube channel, I look for proof of concept. One of my favorite tools for that is to see growing viewership over a 5-year period using a tool like trends.google.com. It's free. Everyone can use it. And you just put in a couple keywords in there. And then you can actually see, like, as long as there is growing interest in that topic, it could make a good content pillar or content bucket for you, which makes it easier for you to categorize the kind of content you're going to create. You need to have an overarching theme for everything so that everything's tied together under one umbrella to make sure that you stay on track and you don't end up getting distracted. So the reason why I say this stuff is because it makes the research phase so much easier when you have clarity around your specific niche, the challenges that people have in that area, your content pillars, your buckets, whatever you want to call them. That makes the research phase a lot easier. And also, by the way, you can use ChatGPT and other AI tools to perform tons of research and get all kinds of great insights in a very short period of time.
Yeah, that's awesome that you mentioned that. And specifically, I want to touch upon the changing niche part, because I truly believe there is a misconception here that you choose a niche and you stay with it forever. And you mentioned that you changed yours so many times. When did you realize that, okay, this niche is not going to work, or I simply don't enjoy working with, and I want to pivot? How did you manage to make those decisions on changing your niche without affecting your business?
The interesting thing is I have done that so many times, but the way I look at it is I make connections in the past, right? So there's the Steve Jobs quote that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it looking backwards. And I truly believe that. And so when I look back across my career, I can look at, like, when I was teaching people how to use cell phones, this was about communication, right? Why did I lean on video? It was about communication. So I can draw a thread across everything. When I change a niche, it's more about the messaging and the presentation and the positioning strategy of my entire business. And so I'll try something out, see if it works, see if it resonates for me, because I want it to be fulfilling work as well, and see if it's resonating with other people. But the work that I'm doing hasn't actually changed. So the deliverable, because my niche is a problem solution niche, whereas other common advice is go for the demographic audience and focus solely on a specific audience. So there's that way to do it. There's also the horizontal way where you have generic services, a kind of jack of all trades. I personally don't like that model. I like to be a specialist. I value craftsmanship and focus. So is there only one way to niche? I think there's multiple ways to do it. And if you need to make a change, then you'll know, because something won't be working. Either it's going to be you don't like it, or it's not resonating with other people. You're not being clear enough about it. Sometimes you've got, like, you know what you're doing. You love doing it. It's so much fun. You enjoy it. But the way you're presenting it is off. So that's, I think, a worthwhile pursuit, to keep sharpening that and figuring it out and getting that positioning right. Some people, it's easier. Honestly, I feel like some people have such an easier time at figuring that part out. And it's something that I've grappled with for a long time. But I've also made that a big part of the work that I do. I love helping someone else figure that out and surface those things that are really important to them, that matter to their core, that become non-negotiables. And I think that's a really good way to approach niche marketing, because I think it comes from within you. It's not just external. So that's where people can get caught up. If you just pick an audience and you think like, okay, I got to craft a message that works for them specifically, but you're not factoring in yourself, the topics that you love to talk about, your subject matter expertise, the career capital you've built up over the years, all of this stuff weighs in on that. So I don't know if I answered your question, but you could tell I'm a little bit passionate about this topic.
Yeah, you did. That's the thing, because if you don't link the niching part with the positioning, it's pointless. Like if your audience doesn't get what you actually do, or which is actually the problem that you solve, it's quite hard to stand out, and you'll just think, oh, maybe I choose the wrong audience, or maybe I choose the wrong niche, but probably just the position it's off. And speaking of positioning and choosing platforms to send your message, I know that we met on LinkedIn, and how that platform influence your current way of doing business.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn for that reason. It's been my home since before Microsoft bought it. It's been a great platform. I never really enjoyed other platforms like LinkedIn, and it's because of the relationships that I built, the conversations that get started, opportunities like this to connect over a podcast. People have a way of thinking on LinkedIn, and most people are career driven on the platform. And that's the kind of person that I am. So it's the sort of people that I want to hang out with. I mean, almost everyone who either creates content or engages with content on LinkedIn has some kind of a project or business or career that they're working on. And so it feels like a place to do that. I think that's a really important part to it, but it's really about the relationships for sure. It wouldn't be anything without that part. So I like to show up, but I'll give you a little tidbit. I started doing this year. When someone sends a connection request or I get a new connection with somebody on LinkedIn, I'll send them a quick voice note and I'll just say, hey, nice to meet you. I like to treat my network like friends. I'd love to hear about what you got going on. And it's worked really well. People respond very well to it. So instead of like the pitch slap, right? Like nobody wants that. Where like you get the connection request and then someone's trying to sell you services immediately. It just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, because as human beings, we hate to be sold. When you personalize your message in a way that feels human, like meeting someone on the street or meeting someone at an event, you don't just go out and sell something to them. You actually start a natural conversation. Like, really great advice to start with a voice note, because what's more personal than that? Probably a video. And when it comes to using LinkedIn and YouTube together, do you have any tips for those starting on either of them? Like maybe they just start their YouTube channel, but they share the content, I don't know, to much more friendlier video first platforms like Instagram or TikTok, and they want to pivot to LinkedIn or the other way around. Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, this is a good topic. There's definitely no one size fits all advice. So I'd like to lead with that. I think the first thing that people need to consider is what is their bandwidth for their mental well-being, to make sure they don't get overwhelmed with trying to take on too much. And I've been on all sides of the spectrum. I've focused on YouTube and LinkedIn primarily, but I've also tried the omnipresence approach where I put out a video on 6 platforms every day for 2 months in a row. And honestly, it's doesn't really work very well. I would recommend most people who are starting out with their content journey to focus on one platform and have a secondary. So that's what I would suggest, because I feel like if you take on too much, you'll burn out. You've got to have a lot of clarity around your business, the kind of work that you love to do, and create content after you've figured that part out. And if you want to take on more than one platform, do it. But if you're going to do YouTube, the secondary channel that is probably the most important is actually building your email list. I've seen some really high level people execute on this strategy very effectively, where you put that time into making a YouTube video, but you've also got the email list to back it up, and you can actually let them know that video came out. That content will perform way better. And the other challenge is if you just make YouTube videos and then you go and share something on an external platform, they just kill your reach because they don't want you to take them off the platform, right? So if I take a YouTube video link and I go and share that on like LinkedIn, like that content isn't going to get very good reach. So that's the thing. I actually build your own email list and do that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's powerful advice because you cannot control the platform that you don't own. You cannot control the algorithm. And if something change or something goes off rail, you have the email list that you actually can control, and you can take it with you. Even that maybe you use a platform that go bust or something, but you have the email list that you can take with you on other platforms. And yeah, spreading yourself too thin, that's something that I used to do as well. And when it comes to being omnipresent, it's so challenging. And first, because all these platforms want you to spend time on them. And if you just share content and you don't engage, you're not active in the comments, like direct messaging as such, you don't do much. And that's why LinkedIn works well, because you do those naturally. But if you just share a video on Instagram and you don't do the same thing, like engaging into comments, sending messages, connections and such, it won't work. And doing that on all platforms, it's impossible.
Exactly. Unless you're Gary Vaynerchuk or you're Grant Cardone or somebody who has a whole team of people to help you do all that stuff. But I mean, it's not really that necessary. One of the principles that I love the most is like, first of all, slow down to speed up. So you enjoy the process of the build from day one, like right now, not tomorrow in this aspirational future. Like enjoy yourself in what you're doing. And the other thing is just focusing on building relationships with genuine people. You don't need to do that on multiple platforms. You can do a lot with a small audience. You don't have to have 10,000, 100,000. That's another drive that the vanity metrics is not really healthy. You can do so much with the small audience. So that's definitely my approach. Focus, double down on what works, and spend time where you enjoy.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And can you also please tell our listeners, if they want to work with you and get in touch, how they can reach out to you, to LinkedIn or your website? Or
yeah, definitely LinkedIn. You can go to matthewbiggar.com. I'm in the process of rebranding and repositioning all my messaging at the time of this recording, but I'm happy to connect with anybody, primarily on LinkedIn. If you want to check out the YouTube videos that I've created, youtube.com/@Matt Biggar. That's MATBIGAR.
awesome. Thanks so much. And I'll put the links into the show notes as well. And to wrap this up, this time I want you to create a challenge for the listeners. And it's a 24-hour one. So they have to be able to complete it in less than 24 hours. And in order for them to, and with this challenge, they have to achieve something meaningful. For example, just creating the foundation of their YouTube channel, let's say, or creating the content strategy for their YouTube channel. Whichever you want to choose, it's fine. I think both are super valuable.
Cool. So the first thing that you need to do is figure out what is the core message of your channel. What you need to have for any successful channel moving forward within the next like 5 to 10 years is going to be even more important. You have to have what's called a compelling value proposition. And the simplest way to break that down is, how do you convey what the reason is someone will subscribe to your channel? And so your challenge is to write that in like less than 10 words. It's doable, but that's the thing that you need as a foundation for your channel. So that's probably the most valuable thing you can do. And it doesn't have to be set in stone. But if you clarify the value proposition of your channel through a core message that gives people clarity about why they will subscribe to your channel, then you will be much more successful than if you just start a channel and you start to dabble and you chase passion and you get distracted. So that's the big one. That's a big challenge. I feel like that might be enough.
Yeah, definitely. It's for certain something that you can sit on it whole day to do that. And that's so powerful for any type of platforms, not just YouTube. This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining the show and to sharing all these insights. Looking forward to see your grow and new positioning. And by the time this episode will go live, I'm sure that will be live as well.
Awesome. I'll make sure of it. Thanks, Gabe.
Thanks so much. Have a great one. Thanks for listening, everybody. Make sure to check the show notes where you'll find direct links to the tools and resources mentioned in this episode, and much more. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast station to not miss when we drop the next one. We have lots of exciting guests and surprises for you coming up. This is your host, Gabe Marushka, with the Nomad Solopreneur Show. Until next week, pura vida!